Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, we're continuing with our series about doing business with the affluent. And we've got an interesting guest this morning who would certainly be looking at that group of people as his potential investors.
That's right. Today we've got Dave Cookson. He's a director of low carbon construction, and he is going to tell us all about a fascinating company. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. So, Dave, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Graham. Glad to make your acquaintance. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts. I say they're absolutely brilliant. Very entertaining.
That's very kind, or at least, or you might have low expectations. So, I mean, either way, it works.
So, it's great to get the testimonial in the first 3 minutes of the podcast.
So, Dave, you sound like you got a bit of a northern accent. Is that right?
Well, I am, yeah. So I noticed you're from Keighley, so I am from Ramsbottom, which is over the Pennines from yourself.
Yeah, well, it's Keighley.
Keighley, sorry, Keighley.
But Keighley, but Ramsbottom. Graham. Actually, I had a college friend from Ramsbottom. So, but it's a lovely part of sort of rural Lancashire. So, welcome. And now you're a director of low carbon construction. Tell us, what's that all about? What does the company do, and what's the plan?
Well, low carb construction's been in existence since 2010, and originally how we started off was we were working with SIPS Builds. For those who don't know what SIPS Builds is, a structured panel. And we were the first company to introduce this in the full building mechanism. And back then we were doing large constructions, so large houses, 3,000 square foot plus. We were building schools with it. And then I suppose we had a bit of an awakening, a bit of a social conscious call, really. And we had a look at what we were doing and thought that there's a huge affordable housing crisis out there. And we thought, how could we do it? So the structure with SIPs, I suppose some would call it a modular build. We don't like to link ourselves in that way, and I'll go into that in more detail. We prefer to call ourselves a manufacturer of houses. And we identified this need. We identified that there's 145,000 shortage, and how could we do it? So we did a lot of research, looked into it, and realized that we could deliver a high number of our builds with the same spec as what we did for our larger properties, which were worth quite a bit of money, and reduced it down. And we analysed our competitors, and obviously modular is not a new concept. And there are plenty of companies out there doing it, some successfully, a number which are not. And it was quite a simple concept. It's in that we looked at it, and how we used to do it is we had a factory down in Portsmouth. We would assemble the parts or get the parts ready, stick them on a low loader, and drive them off to whatever part of the country it was, which inevitably puts time constraints on it. There is also weather constraints, etc. And then we came up with the idea, well, why don't we pick the factory up from where it is and actually put it on the site, which is actually a new concept for modular build, or for manufactured build, as we like to call it. So in that aspect, what we were doing is, and hence the name, we're very socially conscious, but also there's a very big green element to what we do. Then we're obviously saving on transportation. But what that also did is that freed us up to do a higher number of builds a lot quicker. In fact, when our factory's on, we can build a property a day. In essence, we're ready for one a day. And as I say, we're taking out this time of delivering the actual product. Our method is called offsite onsite. So we have designed a factory, we put it in there. If you imagine with the factory, there are 3 bays. This is probably the best way to do it. First floor is built in bay 1, second floor built in bay 2, and then the house goes on. Then it's airlifted from the factory to a purposely designed low rider. It's taken over to a plot, picked up by a crane and stuck on there. So quite revolutionary in some ways, but using, we're not painting it or anything along those lines. It's just taking someone's idea long in the past, because modular's been around for a while, and enhancing in that. And
that point of revelation, Dave, was when you realized that actually we could move this factory that was in Portsmouth to the site itself, so the building site itself. I mean, where I live near Keighley, there are sites, 2 or 3 sites, I think, in building houses in and around the area. So you would literally build a factory on site. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yeah. So I mean, that there are the numbers in it, and this is why we're in the knowledge that we know we can solve that the affordable housing crisis as it is. So our minimum house build is 300. So one factory could do 300 in a year, let's say, taking into breaks for people and Christmas and holidays along those lines.
So what you're saying is that you would actually, where people are actually building at least 300 houses.
Yes.
That's when you'd put
we would put the factory. So our minimum number would be 300. We'd like to do a lot more than that, and I suppose we can scale it up, because what we can do is we can, if we want 600 houses in a year, we build 2 factories.
Yeah.
Simple. So we can do 2. We can do up to as many houses.
And are these factories quite challenging to build? Because it seems to me that your success is going to be based on getting that factory put up, and then it'll just churn out the houses.
Well, the factory, there's been a lot of design. We are not where we want to be, and we're 2 years behind. But COVID had a huge restriction on us. Yeah. But the design to get the factory correct, to make it help with our carbon neutral aim, took some time to do, and that is something we have designed ourselves. But literally, we can put a factory up in a few days.
But what I'm really impressed with, and I've been liaising with your business for a little while, and what I'm really impressed with, and all you have to do is take a look at their website. That's lowcarbonconstruction.co.uk. But if you look at that, the number of partners, Dave. I mean, you must have a black book about a mile thick. I mean, you've got loads of them.
We've done well, and that's because they believe in the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if you give you some headlines, we've got Corma for the carpets and the flooring. Deluxe have designed as a specialized paint. Hemsec are doing our SIPs, and I mean, and that is a really exciting thing. Hemsec.
Sorry, go back again. A SIP? You say?
It's a SIP. It's a panelled. It consists of insulated foam with engineered wood. And what we do is this is our, if you had your traditional builds, you've got your bricks. This is what we build it out of. But it's, its UV content is absolutely exceptional. I mean, when we construct it, in theory, we don't need heating in it. We will put heating in there. Give you an example. This is something which I've been in the industry since 2002 from a financial point of view, doing development finance and mortgages, etc. Little things excite me from it is that our skirting boards are our heating, and that's Bluetooth. So we can switch if we want the left hand skirting board on because Gran's sat there and she wants to be warm, but Dad's over the other side, as you can imagine. We go into the same side.
Kevin, I know what Kevin's like after 7 years podcasting with him, and he's putting his name down for one of these already.
Good. I love this idea. So and I've got smart stuff all over the house. So the idea that the heating like that can be so controllable and entirely on Bluetooth, that just sounds fantastic.
Well, it is. I mean, we're doing this for the affordable sector, but what we don't want to do is, don't want to be derogatory to other builders out there, but as I said, we built large mansions. Let's say we want to take that technology down and put that into our affordable houses. These houses are not going to be built on the cheap.
No.
Okay. No. They are going to consist of all the mod cons. We as I say, we're socially conscious. We want to create something for the clients, be them tenants, because we're going to have tenants, private tenants. We're in contact with a number of funds who work in the social housing area who wants to take a large proportion of these. And our theory is give someone a nice home, and they're going to treat it really well.
Yeah.
Let's give them what they deserve. And there's no real reason. I mean, we started this company, or this chapter of the company, should I say, with the social aspects and the environmental aspects been at a forefront. It just turns out that it's actually quite profitable, but we're not cutting costs. We're not cutting costs. I mean, if you look at the green aspects, each one of our tiles is solar generating.
All right.
And so
this is a roof tile.
This is a roof tile. Yeah.
Right.
So
I thought it was only Tesla that did that. I mean, I thought it was Elon Musk.
No. I mean, I work on the finance side, so don't get me into the technicalities. But I believe it's actually a coating which has been invented in Scandinavia, I think.
Oh wow.
Now, don't hold me to that. Don't hold me.
I love that idea. Because I don't know about you, Kevin, but I just do not like those big slabs of solar panel. I mean,
I don't. I've got to agree with you, gentlemen.
And it's just if you could generate a tile, just remove the tiles that you've got and put these, energy generating tiles. As long as they're a reasonable rate, then I'm all in. I think that's a great idea.
I mean, if you look at what utilities are costing at the moment, obviously there's going to be no gas with ourselves. There's going to be electricity. We're not going to say that we're not going to connect you to the grid, because we will do. But in theory, we could support a small family, two adults, small child, on the basis of that. But obviously nowadays electricity consumption is a lot higher than it was in my day, because everyone's got an iPad, everyone's got a laptop, everyone's got an iPhone which needs charging, etc.
But at the same time, Dave, everybody's got LED light bulbs which take about 10% of the power the traditional light bulbs use.
Yeah, correct. So
it swings and roundabouts from that point of view.
Well, it is, and you make a good point, Kevin, in that the fact that technology is leading us away from what our traditional build was. And we will always keep ahead of, or keep up with the tech which is out there. And I think from the concept of using SIPs, modular builds on the continent are quite common practice. Yeah. But for ourselves in the UK, we seem to are unable to change our mode of doing a traditional build with bricks and mortar.
I've got to say, I work with another client, and they're based abroad, and basically they're in the affordable housing space too. But theirs is like a 3D printing solution, which is fascinating in itself.
Indeed.
And the idea that I can see that the things that you're doing to help our country's shortfall in terms of affordable houses is absolutely crucial to what we need. I mean, because we do need affordable houses. I was surprised that when you said earlier, Dave, that it was 145,000 shortfall. I suspect it's a lot more than that.
It is, and that's going off government data. And I mean, I think this is, you bring a good point, is that an affordable home will come to the market, and I deal with a lot of house builders on my development finance side, and then they're all good. But we have what we call Section 106, and in that Section 106, they will allocate maybe 14 affordable homes, let's say, or whatever the number may be, dependent on the local council area. Right. Those affordable homes are only affordable for the first person to buy them. Right. Okay, and then when they sell them at the going housing rate. So you're putting a plaster over it. Yeah. So what we've done is we've put a covenant into our houses, which are freehold, but there'll be a covenant in there which will link it to CPIH, which is Consumer Product Index Housing, which means that they will always remain in an affordable manner,
relative to the prices or the the economy.
Correct. And again, it's something which seems incredibly simple to do. Yeah. Because then we're solving the affordable. Because if you move on, you will have made some money on with the inflation. We're hoping then you move on to the larger house within our sector.
It makes so much sense. Between where you're from in Ramsbottom and Keighley, where I'm from, you've kind of got the Dales to the north of us, north of us. A lot of people there. I'm not saying you're building houses, 300 houses there, but basically a lot of people there are priced out of just regular homes. Yeah. So they have to travel further. And when houses are getting built, that, as you said, many of them, my youngest son, is thinking of moving back north, was saying that to me the other day, was that basically a lot of the houses or apartments that he's looking at, they're all buy to let, and he wants to buy one. So, so that there are some, shall we say, restrictions being placed by the industry. I guess because it's demand, is it? The people with money, they want to rent the properties, or the councils. Well, as long as you've ticked a box, then we're all good. Is that actually what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, look, the buy-to-let sector is getting larger and larger. We are a nation who likes to buy our properties. Again, mentioning the continent, that's a different area of doing it. The PRS sector is strong. So certainly with the apartments, whereas traditionally they may have come out in the market, the PRS companies, so this is the pension companies who are buying and retaining large blocks, are getting more and more, getting more and more of an appetite for doing it. But whereas that was traditionally city centre, you're now finding that they're moving to the outskirts. And again, there is a large appetite for renting in the UK. It is only getting bigger, so they do serve a purpose. But what we want to do is provide a property which people are going to be able to afford. So we've got a financial side, which is my side, which is what I work on. So we've looked and said, how can we help people? Well, we've got our renters. So what we'll do with the renters is they will put their money away, and they will go on an allocated time of 2 years, and we'll give them the rent back as a deposit, so they can then buy it. We are even forming our own lending arm, so we're getting our permissions to lend. So we want to be able to lend our own money to our own purchasers, and that will be done at a reasonable rate, and it will be not constricted, or it will be constricted by the FCA regulation, the PRS regulations. But it will be to help them out, and we're going to have a certain allocation of renting. If we did a sample up in Wales, where we're looking to buy our first R&D site at the moment, and so we did it with a local agent, and what we wanted to find out was what was the strength of people around there. Who was it first time buyers who needed the allocation of housing? Was it renters? On that, I think we said we had 72 houses. We had 700 applications of all varying different diversity, and if I remember correctly, that was strong for first time buyers. So if we look at the 300, let's say that a third wants to be first time buyers, and a third wants to be downsizers, and a third wants to be renters, then that's how we will allocate the site. So not one site is going to say, again, if we go and have a look at our larger builders, they will have 90%, which will be going out to, they may have a small allocation for first time buyers, but they will design the site around what their profit is going to be. Let's just be truthful about that. Whereas what we want to do is that, our houses are, CAD designed, etc. So they'll be the same, but we're going to say, look, that's what this area needs. It needs, renters. I mean, we're working with local authorities to identify this. We're even working with shelter at the moment, which is the
charity for
homeless, homeless, because we realise that's the sector which we can work in, and we can help out in that.
I mean, let's face it, you've got so much going on here. You have a company now. One of the reasons that you're on, Dave, is that apparently you're looking for investors to invest in. You're looking for investors to invest in low carbon construction. So if you said to a mate down the pub, and you're basically chatting away, and he says, well, who do you work? Oh, I work for low carbon construction. We're looking for investors. Oh, that's interesting. Why should I do that? What are the big reasons that people should be thinking about investing?
Well, the first thing is it's the social aspect,
right?
And the green, other environmental credentials. That's what we started the company on. It's what we focused on. So we're we're changing the dynamics on house building. We're going to be helping out a lot of people and making their lives a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, from a broad spectrum, from our key workers.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, working with charities such as Shelter, and then we're looking at the environmental aspect. I mean, we did a mesh report, which looked at how we could become carbon neutral, and we're not far off. I think they've suggested we buy a couple of forests to offset it. You know, which will be quite
in this country or in Scandinavia somewhere. Or...
I have not looked into it, to
No.
be honest. It was on the mesh report. That's what they've suggested.
Well, you could clear Ramsbottom fairly easily and put a forest there, Dave.
Well, yeah, right. I don't think I'd be very popular in the office, but maybe to a couple. But
we've still got some bits of moorland up in Northumberland that we could put some more forests on.
Well, yeah.
You won't need that St. James.
Will you gentlemen come up and help me seed it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no problem about that. I mean, Kevin's got a shovel, and I can tell him how to use it.
I think we'll need more than 3 of us to get it done, though. Yeah, tell him how to use it. But you know, and so there's the green concept. It's also been part of something which is new. You know, this is a legacy which we want to leave behind a long time after I've retired from the job. And then, as I said, you know, the other side is it's a very profitable business. You know, when I mentioned that we don't cut corners on costs of the build, where we do save money compared to the national house builders, is our overheads. You know, our factories are put on site. There'll be 3 managers there. There's not, and you know, if you look at the building world at the moment, trades are very hard to come by. Well, there's hardly any wet work on there. You know, our buildings, yes, we'll need a little bit of kitchen fitting, etc. But what happens is for our main factory, then we will, if you can imagine a ship container.
Yeah.
Well, when our clients come to us, they will pick their tiles from Tops, their kitchen from Howdens, etc. That will go into the container for that house, and that's all designed just to fit together like a jigsaw or like Lego, if you like. So
as I used to work for Lego.
Did you really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was
brilliant.
I was like their top salesman in the mid 80s for a few years.
Fantastic.
And I loved it. And building things is in my blood. But with little red bricks. But thinking about this site, I love that idea, Kevin, that you can specify your home in advance. And low carbon construction will effectively put all your bits into a container of some sort. That container is brought to the site. Your house is put up because it's modular and you've got the factory building that particular house. And then you just open up the container and take the bits and have local people, or presumably local people, to fit them. It's a logistical challenge, but presumably that's where you get your market edge. Yeah, correct. 100%. We get the market edge there. We get the market edge on the demand for our property. As I said to you, when we did our trial down in Wales, you know, the demand far outstripped it. So our property is affordable. We know that we're going to have the buyers there. So for our investors, you know, that's quite good to know that they're going to, you know, the sites are going to be selling quickly. You know, the aim for us to be in 25, 26 is to be doing 15,000 homes per year. And hence why we're looking into our pre-IPO at the moment. You know, you mentioned that we're looking to investors, and you know, we are quite profitable. The numbers, and we've had a number of investors come in already. The numbers which, and I don't want, because of the Financial Services Market Act 2002, I don't want to put those numbers out. I would rather the lady or gentleman in question go and have a look at Global Cap, but there is a significant investment return. No, and I look, what we're going to do on the podcast is that we'll have a way in which you can find out more information via the show notes. So if you're interested, then we'll have a link that will enable you to find out more information. But right now, for the moment, we don't need to go into the specific numbers apart from pretty much what you've just said, Dave, that it's a profitable business and it bears some research. And anybody who's planning to do an investment in this should really do their own research or at least talk to your financial advisor. Yeah. So that being said, what's the type of investment that somebody might want to make in this? I mean, presumably the people that have come along so far have invested certain amounts. What's typical, do you think? So
minimum share acquisition is 15,000.
Right. Okay.
And upwards from there. We as you said, it will be in the show notes. We're using a platform called GlobalCap, which is FCA regulated.
Yes.
So our prospective investors can go onto GlobalCap, which will have all our vision documents and business documents, etc. And that's actually quite a new concept again, really, for how we do the shares. GlobalCap is a relatively new company. I think they got the license from the FCA probably 24 months ago. So it's quite an easy process from there to do it in the fact that they do their research. They can have the comfort that it is regulated, and if they wish to do the share acquisition, it's simply as going on there and doing it.
So, I mean, 15,000 is the minimum. What have you spoken to some of the investors who've come along?
Which investors? Sorry, because
the one you said you've already got some investors who've
so I mean, you mentioned IFA. My IFA invested, so that's I put it over to my
but you had his arm up his back, didn't you? Let's face it.
Well, he's a lot bigger than me, so I wouldn't have tried it. Yeah, to be honest with you, but no, I mean, the investors which have come in, they've looked at the financials. I think we've got to take that into account. They've had a look at the business documents, the vision documents, and realised that it's a very good way to move forward. I mean, we've just been approached we're working with an investment house of recent time. We did have some sticking points with regards to the advertisement because of the regulations. That was a lot of back and forth with lawyers. And once we got over that, which was around about 6 weeks ago, we've then reached out. So large Mayfair investment house have validated it. As I said, we've had a number of funds who want to buy into the company that post the IPO, because we're looking to go on the AIM market.
Right.
Okay. So that's hopefully, and again, that's taking advice off the likes of Zeus, who are guiding us through that process.
Okay.
So those chaps have said go onto the AIM market, and we're hoping to, when we get the pre-IPO, which is what we're looking for, the 10 million mark, which we're incredibly hopeful of getting in the next 2 to 3 months. So then the process will be able to go on the AIM market. Once it goes on the AIM, then we're quite confident that then the larger funds have already said they will come in at that point.
Yeah.
And buy up the shares. So
between the pre-IPO and then AIM listing, how much are you really needing to actually make that kind of, if my maths are right, you're looking to at least get rid of 10% of the missing affordable housing in relative short order. So in other words, you said 145,000, and you're talking about 15,000 per annum.
Yes.
10% of the problem goes away if you can get the things done. I'm sure the problem gets worse and so forth. The maths might not be perfect, but the point is, you'll make a serious dent with this methodology. So why wouldn't any investor think, goodness, which horse do I get on? And so between pre-IPO 10 million and then AIM, how much do you really need to make that dent, broadly speaking?
What, monetary wise? Sorry.
Yeah.
So we need 10 million, and what that will enable us to do is to get a specific boarding. So we're looking for a manufacturer FD. Right. So that's part of course of the course we want to go down. That will help us get our R&D sites up and running. So we can then get them seen, and it takes us to the next stop. Obviously covers the costs of getting on AIM, which we can do. In theory, we think we could do this ourselves, but it's just over a longer period of time, and we want to bring this market in quite quickly, and we also want people to be part of the journey with us. That's a major thing for us. We want people to come on board, believe in the idea, you're getting reward on 3 points as far as I'm concerned. You're going to be, you get the social aspects, you get the environmental aspects, and you're going to get. I mean, I would say go and have a look at the
numbers, and
the
numbers.
numbers.
The numbers look good as well.
Yeah.
So,
the numbers look fantastic, and as long as we follow this business plan, then we will be making that 10% dent by 2025, 26.
Well, that'd be fantastic. Because to be honest with you, having dealt with you as a company for a little while, I have complete faith that you'll do this. You're good people, and I think you genuinely want to do something honourable for the market. You've never wavered, even in this discussion already. You've never wavered from that point, and I think anybody listening to you is going to be quite interested in that. The thing that's going through my mind is that is it a UK solution, or is it something that you could actually take to other countries? I'm a great believer in Brexit, global Brexit, as in being able to take our skills and sell them abroad. Is that part of your plan?
Yes, massive part of the plan. We want to get things. We want to get the UK sorted first.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. But we have already had inquiries. So, Ireland are looking to. There's a contact in Ireland who are looking to do it, and there's no reason why we can't pat this up. I mean, if if you look at Amazon as an example, you can put an Amazon warehouse wherever you wish to do so, and that would be our hub. We talked about the containers. That's what we need, and the factories can be built anywhere. These factories are built and then taken down and moved on. Our factories have a 10-year lifespan. So we can pick them up, and if we wanted to ship one over to somewhere in Scandinavia, then we can do that. So, European appetite, even in the States. I mean, when we were talking to the investment house we're working with, they were saying that there's a concept which has been done in Utah, I think it was, but they're still not building it, taking it in on the low loader, and that was 3,000 units built there, and we're saying, well, we just moved the factory over. So say the idea, the main trigger point to us getting the multiple houses is the on-site off-site creation of the factory. And I would ask your listeners to do their research on the other modular builders out there, or manufactured buildings which are out there, and see what numbers they can deliver. There is a lot of money been thrown at it from Homes England, etc. I'm aware only last week that a major one went under. I don't want to say names of the companies who in essence are competitors. I think that would be unfair, but I'm aware that 2 are making a loss every year, and they're 2 of the largest ones. And it's because they keep on throwing money at the wrong idea. So this is the solution to the right. So this is your solution.
And this is just without mentioning the company names, what is the wrong idea?
Well, the wrong idea is that they can't deliver the numbers. So it's as simple as that, because they've got restrictions in the factory. So if you've got one factory, you can imagine we've got one huge factory. Let's say it's twice the size of our on-site factory. Okay. And it's over in wherever it be, Yorkshire, etc. They can only produce a limited number within that factory to then put on the low loader to take it away. So what we're saying is pick the factory up and put it on the site. So we can have 10 factories on our sites delivering 300 per annum.
Got you.
Yeah. It's not, it's one of them. It's not, when you look at it, it's not rocket science. It's just looking at the problem, breaking it down. And again, if we talk about Lego, we break it down, we rebuild it. Yeah. We're using the same. We used
materials. We used to say it's a new toy every day.
Yes, well, exactly.
In your case, it's a new factory. Not quite every day, but
but that's it. I mean, if we look, I mean, the problem we thought is that we can build these houses, and where do we get the land from? But we're dealing with a number of the house builders, the larger house builders, which have, believe it or not, 1 million plots in land bank.
Yeah.
And what we're going to have a round table with them through one of the lawyers we work with. And they want to meet with us because we can take their section 106 off them.
Which means,
which means the affordable. So for every site which is built, there'll be a section 106, which will dictate that they have to build so many affordable houses.
I see.
Now, with the new regulations which have come in, the larger house builders, the Barratts, the Wimpys, etc., they have to, the tradition they could have this land for 10, 15 years before they build something. The government are now saying, look, you've got to build on this land. So we solve the problem there with them in the fact that we go in and build that. Once they built on that site, that's fine. So they could build 10 houses and they might have 100 more to build out.
So is it likely that the Barretts and Wimpey will be knocking on your door and saying,
they already are. They already are.
To be honest with you, they haven't cracked the code. You have. And isn't it just cheaper to come along and buy you?
Well, it is, but there's always going to be, there's always going to be an element of somebody. You've got to remember our houses are always going to be affordable. So there's going to be an element who may want to buy a larger house or something, along those lines, or something which is going to have, in some ways, the traditional capital growth. But in essence, we're not. The house builders don't see us as competitors. Literally, we're not competitors. We're doing affordable housing. We're solving a problem for them. We're solving a problem for the country. We're solving a problem for them because their affordables are built generally at a loss. It's a headache for them. That they have to do certain checks on the people coming in. But we want that. Yeah. So, literally, we've been invited for sit down with all the major house builders to discuss this. Again, with regards to land, Homes England, we're talking to those guys. I mean, there's one council down south who's wants us to build 15,000 houses for them. Wow. The other element, I mean, is that if we take the environmental impact, which we do, that does allow us in some cases to build on greenbelt if we wanted to.
The thing about, I don't know about you, Kevin, but one of the things that it's going through my mind is that maybe I'm just living in a. I mean, most of my business is all about marketing to the affluent. So basically, I find people, investors and so forth, and sell high ticket items. But actually, when you look at it, surely the affordable market share over time, I'm maybe up in Northumberland, Newcastle, all that area, even though there are parts of it very wealthy, I would say probably 90% isn't. And you take Leeds, same idea. You take Bradford, same idea. You go to all the north, I would say 90% are but then there's 10%. Great, my maths might be wrong, but aren't you in the majority, Dave?
Yeah, of course we're in the majority. And I mean, we're in the majority, and people want to own the hoses. So if we look at Cumbria, etc., there are pockets which are wealthy, as you say, but there are pockets which are not so wealthy, and you find that these people are in rented because that's all they can afford to do. Exactly, yeah. So again, we want to keep the community together. So we're building communities. I mean, our builds are depending on the size, we're going to be including gyms. So if we did 500 to 600 homes, we're going to have live work units where
if you put a gym on site, they'll be all running away, won't they? Crikey! I mean, they'll all get subscriptions, and then nobody will turn up.
Well, at least the subscription will be free on this one because it'll be part of the community.
That's brilliant.
So they can flash the membership and pretend that they go a bit like what I do. I think I've been once or twice.
It's a certain bet in Yorkshire, that's for sure. If it's free.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Indeed. Yeah.
Dave,
yes.
Looking at this, we're doing this series of podcasts at the moment, talking specifically about doing business with the affluent. Now, your main business, as far as the houses are concerned, is with the opposite community to that, which is great. Mm-hmm. Your business with the affluent is definitely coming from the point of view that you need investors.
Correct. Yes.
Now,
yes.
I can see that we've picked up a few lessons already today. We've talked about the platform that you've got in order to allow investors to come in and buy shares in the organization. Mm-hmm. We've talked a little bit about, it's a very environmentally aware product. So if you're of that group of people that wanted to invest for a very good environmental reason, well, it's a great investment. There's the social aspects that you're sorting a problem out. Mm-hmm. Now, if we come down to it, an affluent investor is interested in placing money in an organization such as yours because, well, frankly, there's no money to be had in investing in bank accounts and so on,
etc. Yes.
So you're looking for a higher rate of return, but isn't there a flip side that when you're looking for that higher return, there's always a risk?
Yes, and this, when meeting with the investment house the week or so back, was what we have to convey to them. There is a risk. There always is a risk with investing in any products, and as you mentioned, bank accounts, they're low risk. And if we're investing in a pre-IPO, then they are considered higher risk. I mean, I'll give you a figure, and I'll say circa, but our return is 65. Times original investment, and that I would like you to go to confirm that on the business plan and look at the financials. Now, we're not guaranteeing that that's what it will be.
Sorry, did you say 65?
I did say 65. Yes. So 10,000 will get you 650. Now, if we go back to the original point, and as I say, that needs to be looked at, revised and researched, etc. We've got a business plan. This isn't something which we came up with 12 months ago. This is 12 years in the making. And we there is an awful lot of money which has been sunk in privately for this. This is something we believe in passionately. We've not just started on it. It's quite simple. We have the land, we have the designs, we have all the architectural designs, we have the engineering designs. We as I said, we're with Homes England, National House Builders, councils. If we've got the land and we follow our business plan step by step, we will get to where we need to be. We have a problem, we have the solution. It is really as simple as that.
To be honest with you, for any investor listening to this, they now must find out more information. And the reason is, if you consider the next few years with things like inflation,
correct,
which is what topped out at 9% at the moment, and it was higher when we were a bit younger, but it was basically, truth is that's a very, very large amount. 10% of your income is just wiped away. So realistically, finding investments, yes, they're higher risk. And yes, Kevin, we are talking about a series that talks about doing business with the affluent, and that's the kind of person that we want to sort of take notice of this particular podcast. But the beauty of it is that their money, even though they might make a good return, doesn't necessarily have to be as high as what you've just mentioned. Frankly, if you're off by half, you've still made a huge return. But the point being is that what more would you want an affluent person to do than to solve a problem for somebody who isn't affluent? And it's almost like, as you said, it's socially responsible, it's environmentally responsible, and you make some money. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
For me, it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah,
it really does. It does. And again, I'll go back to the investment house which we're working for. We're fully aware now that, and this company works in petroleum and gas.
Right.
They're now taking their clients in a different direction because we are in a climate of change. I'm not 100% sure that's entirely what I would be doing, but having said that, because I still think we'll need oil and gas. Oh, of course,
decades.
Sorry, there's
diversification. But they'll I'm sure that. And actually, if you find such a good return from house building, which is critical. Tell me, just describe for me, if you would, Dave. I mean, I've got this sort of house in mind because I'm pretty sure this sort of modular design is happening on one of the sites where I live, and not necessarily like yours, but they've gone up fairly quickly, and it looks like there's lots of wood and this sort of, is it SIP you call it? But so. Just describe to me, is it a 3-bedroom? Is it a 2-bed? How is it?
Yeah,
how does it look?
So there's different ones on a BIM design.
Right.
Okay. So there are various different types of houses, but they will range from 3 bedrooms. We can do apartment blocks 4 or 5 bedrooms. So they won't be uniformed. Okay. Now you've mentioned there's lots of wood, etc. Now our houses. So if we take Ramsbottom, where I live. If you were to build a new house, it would have to be in a traditional stone to fit in with the environment. we can replicate the stone on our sides. If we wanted it to look like a wooden cabin, we can make it look like a wooden cabin. The SIPs is the box. We can put the I'm looking for the correct word, the facade on the front of it. So they're done. I mean, our average 3-bedroom is around about 1,300 square foot, which is probably 200 to 300 square foot more than your national average, I would have thought, for a new build. So again, we're looking to give them space. Again, it's not just with regards to the house build. I mean, I touched on it before, but when we're getting to a certain level, 600 or more, we're going to have a pub on the site. We're talking with Sainsbury's and Co-op, because we'll have some shops on there, and we want to make it a community. And I mentioned the gym before. We don't want to make it a gated community. That gym will be open for all.
Yes.
As with the pub, and we want a private space. So if you want to have a birthday party or something along those lines, then we can do that. So again, our aim is to create something new, to in some ways go back to how people used to live. I mean, if we're talking about the up in Cumbria before, or Yorkshire or Lancashire, where big mining towns, if you think back to how they were in the community that they had, and they've all been moved out for lack of work or whatever it may be, we want to try and get back to that. So again, it's something, it's getting the old and making it new.
Got you. That makes sense. I'm particularly interested in this. I just think this is you have to go and do your own research, but the more you think about it, as Dave says, it ticks the boxes. It's difficult to see, because you've spent so many years looking at this. It's difficult to see where the real risk is. And if you really had to sort of say to somebody, okay, and you're still in the pub and you're still talking, and you've excited them with the potential for the return, but you say, but you know what, Graham, the real risk is we don't raise the money in time and hit our goals. That's the real risk. I truly believe that we have covered off all angles. There is, there may be problems we can't foresee. Sure.
Our major problem was land. We solved that. The SIPs build, we already had the concept on that, but how do we do it? Well, we do the factory on site. Okay. The partners, as you mentioned before, we've got over 82 partners with us. We've got the partner show down in the Rose Bowl in Southampton. We'd love it if you guys would come along, and if any of the guests wants to come, that's going to be in March. So they'll be doing their spits. There will be some speakers on there, and they can have a look at it by then. But hopefully we'll be doing the pre-IPO. But if it's just of interest, we've got many architects who are coming down and taking the time. But the risk is if we don't raise the funds. That's truly what I believe. The problems have been solved. You could look at it as if we were doing it just on a modular build, and we were putting it out to the open market, if you like. Well, are people going to buy a modular build? But our buying demand is there. Yeah, no, but look at it this way. Kevin's the numbers guy, but if you're talking about 10 million and you're talking about dividing that by 15,000 minimum, you need 600. Oh, I'm not even going to say that word because it's 666, isn't it? But that's not a good number, is it?
Number of the beast on a day that Leeds United have got to hope a football match is lost.
oh, Kevin, you've brought it down.
Oh, crack! Who are you playing again? I've forgotten. Is it?
Well, we're not playing, but Burnley.
Burnley are playing, aren't they? And Everton are playing. That's correct. Yeah.
And so we just hope those two have a bit of an off day. And then.
Well, I am a Manchester City fan, but you'll be interested to know that I used to go to Ellen Road as a child.
Oh well, and I'm so sorry that we lost you to the dark side. But the truth is, you don't need that many investors. And with such an appealing opportunity, a story, and actually my understanding of the way in which investors tend to work is that, once they've kind of got 15 in their mind, but once they get to know you, there's an art that's put behind it. or possibly even a couple of knots. And the point being with that is that they see the real opportunity. So for me, what you need right now, and a lot of them, are conversations with investors, that you can have that conversation. And this is part and parcel of that. If people can understand a little bit more about what low carbon construction is, and people listening to this podcast might never have heard of you. All of a sudden they have heard of you, they understand what you're trying to do, they're going to be finding out more about it, because it's a good, potentially very good investment.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ideas which come to mind is that we may well do a webinar of some sort. And then we can invite the questions in, because obviously we could spend days on this podcast answering all questions to it, but I think a webinar will probably be a good idea. We're doing a lot of more social interaction on it now that we've actually been given the go ahead by the lawyers and the solicitors, etc., to be able to publicize our offering. So we're actually just recruiting our social media guy at the moment, so that is something for the future, which is up for discussion. So I think that's the best way for us to do it. So
I think that's it. The good news is that you're going to be communicating a lot more. Believe it or not, we're bang out of time. So what we're going to have to do is say, Dave Cookson, thank you so much for your time at Ellen Road, and thank you so much for being a guest on the next 100 Days podcast.
Brilliant. Can I just say it's been a pleasure, and thank you ever so much for having me on.
Graham, I think that there are some really interesting lessons coming out of that podcast. I mean, we're looking at a company who clearly need to engage with a certain sector of the population, and their challenge is to put enough money in the bank ahead of doing an IPO. So, we've seen a great example there of why should this investment appeal to that individual over other investments. So we can see the social side, we can see the environmental side. We've learned another lesson about making the investment easy to do on a platform. And then we started talking about that big thing of risk. And understanding risk is a very interesting area to get into. And obviously we've got Dave there, who wants the investors, is always going to put a gloss on things. But understanding risk of your investment, I think, is an area that we should be exploring on this podcast in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. I think Dave did a pretty good job of balancing the risk. I think he
to be fair,
the biggest risk was not raising the money. As it happens, I don't think they're going to have that problem. I think there are people out there who will see the real opportunity that low carbon construction has, because basically they've kind of, like in my phrase, cracked the code. And I think if they can actually get those mini factories right round the country, then they can do such damage to the lack of affordable houses, which for most people, they want affordable houses. You don't have to go far. I mean, certainly we've got 3 building sites in our, what used to be a village. And there are part of those that are social housing. But, frankly, all of them could be social housing, as in affordable housing. And they won't be, they'll be pushing the top end on some of these houses. So if they're doing things that are really helping the market, and they are a natural bedfellow for the biggest house builders, well, they've got a heck of a future. Oh, and the other thing to bear in mind is that they don't have as much competition now. So, realistically, they're in a very, very strong position to make those staggeringly good returns if they come off. But you have to take advice. And we'll give you a link on our show notes. So if you're interested, just click through on that link, and then you can find out more.
And if you're listening to this as an investor, I mean, there's no way Graham and I are ever going to give you any sort of financial advice around an investment, but other than to say to you that you have to go into anything like this with your eyes open. You've got to analyze what you're putting your money into, And you've got to think yourself about the risk. And there would be, say, if you're looking at a project like this, there would be some obvious ones that I'd probably want to explore. And I'd want to be saying, hang on a minute, this is a company that's got a particular technology. Well, hang on. What are the barriers to entry? What's stopping other like companies coming into the market and doing the same and commoditizing this a little bit? Huge rate of return that we've talked about. Well, that's attractive to other companies, isn't it? So there's always the chance of new entrants. And you've got the big house builders. They're seeing this solution as something they can buy that solves them a problem. But they could theoretically, invest in their own factories on site and do it directly. So there are all of those factors that you probably have to take into account.
You're right. The thing that gives me hope for low carbon construction relative to those issues is that this wasn't thought up a week on Tuesday ago. These guys have been working all out across, as you heard, many different fields, many different sort of aspects of all of this. And they've really worked at this very, very hard. Now they've got a solution which they've put in front of, or they're putting in front of investors. So for me, all I would say to an investor is find out more. And then if you like it, then you know what to do. So, well, it's been a fascinating podcast. Dave was such a good guest. And, today I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.